To order the special commission meeting Monday, January 26th of 2026, that's a mouthful, of the LAFCO Monterey County. And if I could have a roll call, please.
Sure. Starting roll call, Commissioner Bickle, Commissioner Daniels,
Present.
Commissioner Mayor Donahue,
Here.
Commissioner Gorley, Commissioner Kong,
I'm here.
Commissioner Lindley,
Here.
Commissioner Mayor Oglesby,
Here.
and we have excused absences from Commissioner Lopez and Commissioner Velasquez. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And I am here.
Oh.
If you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to general public comments for any item that is not on the agenda. And please limit yourself to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak on an item not on the agenda?
Chair Leffel, no hands are raised on Zoom.
All right, I'm going to close public comment. And we'll go to the first item, which is the consent agenda. There are 4 items on there. I would entertain public comment on those items.
Chair Leffel, no hands are raised on Zoom.
All right, I see no one in the audience. Would any of my commissioners like to pull an item for further discussion or any comments?
I'll move approval of the agenda, consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Gorley and Commissioner Daniels. Oh, Oglesby, I'm sorry. I thought Kate had a lower voice. We have a first and a second. Roll call. We just don't need a roll call. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you very much. New business. We have an update on the anticipated Vista Lucia and Puente del Monte annexation projects, the city of Gonzales. This is an informational item. And can we have, who's doing the staff report or the update?
I'll begin, Vice Chair. Thank you. Yes, good afternoon, commissioners and attending members of the public. I'd like to acknowledge in particular, we have a special guest today from City of Soledad. This is Maria, or Gonzales, I'm sorry, City of Gonzales, of course. This is Maria Orozco, former mayor and a longtime resident community member. Also a longtime commissioner on LAFCO of Monterey County. So we welcome you. Thank you.
Chair, can I just ask a question to Executive Director? Just in terms of, want to make sure I'm at the right location. I'm not seeing agenda item 5 on the, it doesn't mark it as agenda item 5, but does this start on 31 of 42?
3 of 42.
This begins, Commissioner Daniels, on page 31
That's
of
fine.
42. And you're right, we didn't mark that agenda item number. Sorry about that.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure I was on the right spot.
Yes, you are. So our purpose in this agenda item today is to provide an information-only update to our commissioners concerning the status of 2 and future annexation applications that we anticipate receiving from the City of Gonzales. And both of these have previously been reviewed for information about 4.5, 5 years ago in 2021. Both projects remain in pre-application status right now, but you can anticipate that in coming weeks and months, you'll be seeing some formal activity relating to both of these. So the presentation today will be jointly provided by our principal analyst, Jonathan Brinkman, and by myself. And we have a few slides and just oral comments, and then we would welcome any questions from our commission and members of the public. Thank you.
Chair Leffel and Commissioners, thank you for this presentation today. As Kate mentioned in her opening remarks, this has been to the Commission before in 2021 as part of an update. These projects are largely the same in size with a few changes since 2021. They're largely the same. These project areas are within the city's sphere of influence, which was adopted by the Commission in 2014 and shown on this map on this slide. Just to note here that the Commission developed its Ag Preservation Policy Amendment in 2024, and that was partly in response to feedback from Salinas Valley cities and other stakeholders. Outcomes of that policy amendment were to allow phased annexation and phased ag mitigation for annexations, and this is for annexations of 100 acres or larger in our policy. Both of these projects meet that 100 acres or larger. Vista Lucia at 768 acres and the Puente del Monte project at 501 acres. Both of these projects are at the pre-application stage. And just a note on the city's Vista Lucia project, it's moving forward ahead of the Puente del Monte project. On September 2nd, the City of Gonzales City Council approved the final environmental impact report, the tentative map, other project entitlements with a specific plan. And this Puente del Monte is still at the notice of preparation of an EIR stage. So it is behind in time sequence with the city. Also, the city's Vista Lucia project, this is the first major test of an annexation project under LAFCO's updated ag preservation policy. And it will, as that first one in, it will set the precedent for future city growth applications to LAFCO. So just wanted to give share those points and then talk a little bit about the size of both of these proposals. So both projects, as I had mentioned, are similar in the size that was presented to the Commission in 2021, 5 years ago. Together, these projects would result in essentially doubling the size of the city of Gonzales in terms of acres. And then in terms of housing units, it's about a 300% increase in the number of housing units in the city. And then to look at, just looking at the Puente del Monte project, so the city issued a notice of preparation for an EIR early in January. Staff learned of this in looking at the state's CEQA website on CEQA notices. We have not, as LAFCO, received a notice from the city, which is a standard practice on a notice of preparation, since we are a responsible agency. However, staff intends to provide draft comments on the notice of preparation within the deadline and provide the letter to the Commission for final review and confirmation at its February meeting. And this is the same process that we followed in 2024 for the Vista Lucia project's draft environmental impact report letter. And wanted to also give an overview on the Vista Lucia project and a few more slides, and then we'll switch presenters at that point. So with the Vista Lucia project, So as an overview from 2024 to 2025, staff commented and requested that the city's EIR base the project's agricultural mitigation on LAFCO's agricultural guidelines. And at the September 2nd City Council hearing, the city adopted it, their EIR, but it was based on the city's farmland ordinance. However, in October 2025, after urging of LAFCO staff, the city amended the final EIR's mitigation monitoring and reporting program to conform to LAFCO's policy. So the current status is that the city is now preparing to submit a LAFCO annexation application, and there are still some unresolved issues. These include consistency with the city's agricultural mitigation proposal, with LAFCO's policy, and consistency of the phasing plan with the LAFCO checklist for phased annexations. This is a map of the city's ag mitigation proposal. So on this map, this does show prime farmland in the bright green, and then farmland of statewide importance in a lighter green. So here at the top of the north end of the map, we have the Vista Lucia project site, the 768-acre site for that project. And then approximately 10 miles to the south, we have the city's ag mitigation proposal site, which is for the phase 1 out of 4 phases for this project. So in terms of process, the city scheduled and held a January 8th meeting in Gonzales to discuss for the first time the city's agricultural mitigation proposal. The city's ag mitigation proposal, the information of that was shared in December 19th ahead of that meeting. So now I'll get into the LAFCO policy. So on LAFCO's agricultural preservation policy, we described what required steps for using conservation easements as ag mitigation. So the policy goes into that dedication of conservation easements is the preferred mitigation type, and then to the extent practicable, conservation easement receiver sites should be located in close proximity to the community where the proposed annexation is and where the farmland is being lost. So that's the first priority of our policy. However, it does allow for other sites that are within Monterey County and or the applicant to proceed with an in lieu fee, and that is if a good faith effort has been met. The policy also describes what is meant by a good faith effort. Essentially, 3 steps are needed. There's a need to consult with a qualified conservation entity who will hold that conservation easement. It also requires that the applicant has made a reasonable effort to identify suitable conservation easement sites, and then that there has been one or more bona fide offers for suitable conservation easement sites at fair market value. Okay, at this point, I'll turn over to Executive Officer Kate McKenna.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Earlier this month, I participated in a meeting at the Gonzales city offices with members of the city staff, the developers team, representatives from the Ag Land Trust, and also the developers. Actually the owner of the proposed receiver site for the conservation easement that Jonathan showed you on a map before. Also in attendance at that meeting as part of the representation were attorneys. Our general counsel was not invited to that meeting. However, the initial comments that I provided to the group were discussed and prepared in consultation with our general counsel, Reed Gallagly. So I wanted to just take a few minutes, please, to help you understand to inform you what the comments were that we provided. These are initial comments on the developer's proposed ag mitigation proposal. The proposal itself was received in our office just before the Christmas holidays, I believe around December 19th. We were invited by City of Gonzales staff to review the proposal and provide initial comments. The first opportunity to do so was at a meeting held in the city offices on January 8th. So what I am presenting to you today are the communications that I gave at that time to the city with respect to the LAFCO process, steps required, LAFCO's expectations, and issues concerning the proposed mitigation. The overall comment that I provided on behalf of our LAFCO is that the developer's agricultural mitigation proposal does not follow LAFCO's policy with respect to the use of conservation easements. First, the developer's proposal does not conform to the required steps laid out in the policy for using conservation easements as ag mitigation. The first step of the adopted process has not occurred. That first step requires that the applicant engage with a qualified conservation entity in a documented good faith effort to identify and secure suitable ag conservation easement sites in close proximity to the city. That threshold remains unresolved, and until it is, the policy has not been followed. Second, the applicant, or in this case, the developer, as we're still in a pre-application phase here, has not demonstrated reasonable efforts to identify suitable potential conservation easement sites in close proximity to the community of Gonzales, where the annexation and loss of farmland are occurring, nor has there been any showing of a bona fide offer for a suitable site at fair market value on suitable available sites. If there is such evidence, we have yet to receive it, and we would welcome it. As a result, at that early January meeting, I advised the city and the developers team that the agricultural mitigation proposal does not satisfy LAFCO's policy requirements and is incomplete at this stage. I then suggested a series of steps pursuant to the Commission's adopted policy to help the city rectify this issue and enable this process to move forward in an expeditious manner. It's my goal, it's the goal of all of our commission and our staff to be able to support the City of Gonzales in meeting their critical challenges, including construction of new housing and infrastructure to support housing and other urban development. And we are asking that the ag mitigation component be reviewed and revised to conform to the Commission's newly adopted policy. Let's see. I wanted to share also at that meeting that the Ag Land Trust representatives who were present did share with the group at least 3 suitable sites for ag mitigation that are currently available and that have property owners willing to work with the City of Gonzales and the Vista Lucia developers team in executing conservation easements. Jonathan, if you can move forward. The slide here in yellow or green, kind of bright green and yellow, show 3 sites that as of this month have been identified as properties with landowners willing to engage with the city and Vista Lucia developers in executing conservation easements. You can see the strategic importance or value of these properties in that they hug the city's southern edge, which has been identified both by LAFCO and by the city's own general plan as a southern edge. That is below that, just above. I'm not sure if you can point, Jonathan, to which property I'm referring to. It's the one that says 0.3 miles to the city limit. Thank you. That is just below Gloria Road, and immediately above that parcel is the Rionda property that was put into a conservation easement within the last year or two by as part of a annexation application approved by this LAFCO. The property just to the right of that, more of the bright green, that property is at the edge of the city's sphere of influence, and like directly across the street from where we anticipate future development. Actually, the Vista Lucia, or the Puente del Monte project that we've mentioned, would be built within a stone's throw of that property. The property to the north, kind of on the northwest side of the city, that is also currently available for a conservation easement site. Of course, LAFCO doesn't really get involved in defining which sites must become or should become conservation easement receiver sites. However, our policy provides plenty of guidance and structure. When the commission updated our policy in 2023, additional steps were laid out to provide certainty about the location and types of conservation easements that would be suitable. These conservation easement sites that have been identified by the Ag Land Trust, I want you to know that the Ag Land Trust shared at that meeting that they went out and identified these sites in good faith, having had an introductory meeting with the City of Gonzales and LAFCO staff last October. So in good faith, they were preparing to be of assistance to the city in helping to identify willing property owners at the city's western and southern edges. What has been proposed, and you can see it on this map, about 9.5 miles from the city's edge and about 12 miles from the proposed phase 1 of the Vista Lucia project, is what's labeled here as the Mission Ranch property. This property outlined in red is the proposed receiver site that the development team is recommending, or that the city include as part of its annexation application. When we received information about that proposal in the last half of December, what we received was actually a 2-page, fully executed memorandum of conservation easement agreement that had been signed by the property owner of the receiver site and by the developers' representatives. earlier that month, Reed and I and other staff attended a joint city developer team meeting, and we were not privy at that time to the location or any details of this proposed ag mitigation site, but we were notified that the developer was moving ahead to sign an agreement. I specifically, at that early December meeting, encouraged the developer to not sign the agreement until the proposed mitigation site had been vetted and thoroughly reviewed with LAFCO staff and with a conservation entity, such as a land trust. So what we received was the fully executed version, and then we were asked to provide initial comments. So one of the comments that I provided at our January meeting is that it just seemed awkward to be providing initial comments on an agreement that had been fully executed and not shared with us in draft form. So what is driving this decision of the developer to propose this mitigation site, this Mission Ranch site? It's all about money. This site, the conservation easement value of the Mission Ranch for conservation easements is approximately $7,000 per acre. The approximate value of a conservation easement at the city's edge, including those 3 representative parcels that are outlined here in light green and yellow, their conservation easement value is, as of early January, about $10,000 per acre. So there's at least a 30% discount factor for locating a mitigation site quite distant from the city limits. We also learned after that January 8th meeting, within just a day or two, business day or two after that, that another valuation in the Gonzales area had occurred because of a sale of property, and now the going conservation easement cost of strategic value next to the city of Gonzales is closer to $11,000 per acre. So one of the steps that we have taken as a staff to help understand what the implications of all that are is to take a look at what the cost difference is between a $7,000 acre and a $10,000 or $11,000 acre. That 35% difference factor amounts to, if you were to factor that in and apply that cost to the future phase 1 homes to be built for the Vista Lucia project, the approximate cost, just rough numbers, is about $500, perhaps $600 per housing unit, far less than 1% of the anticipated cost of those new homes in the future. So we also, I really want to emphasize as part of our analysis what we're looking at as why do we even have conservation easement tools here at LAFCO? What is the point of our policy and what we're trying to do as a commission and as a public agency? And it really goes back to the legislative purposes of our LAFCO as expressed under the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act. And I know you know all of those purposes, but they are to prevent urban sprawl. They are to protect our best farmland and open space. They are to encourage urban development that is orderly and well-planned, and to help with the efficient delivery of services. So most of those purposes are encompassed by conservation easements that are located at or near a city's edge. We have a strong history in this LAFCO of conservation easements that have been applied by LAFCO and enforced as part of city annexation projects, and those have been very, very successful. Just starting a little bit further down the valley, if you look at a decision that our LAFCO made in 2002 for King City, there was Myers Mill conservation easement applied at the northern end of the city to protect the best farmland around the city of King City, that is at the north end of that community. Likewise, in the city of Gonzales, as I mentioned, the Rianda application in 2023 for an annexation at the south end of the city of Gonzales. A conservation easement was put into place on the south side of Gloria Road that very well helped to execute the city's own goals for growth, where growth should be and where farmland should permanently be. It matched with a city of Gonzales and County of Monterey memorandum of agreement about the future direction of growth, and it satisfied LAFCO's objectives. Moving up the valley, a couple of other examples would be in the city of Salinas. About 10 years ago, the LAFCO approved an annexation for what was called the Salinas Travel Center at the south end of town near Highway 101. That included a conservation easement at the southern edge of that annexation area. And again, that there were very important public strategic reasons for that conservation easement in that place. And then we have a very large conservation activity that occurred with the Unicool project down Abbott Street, and significant goals were accomplished to ensure that, to help again guide the future direction of urban growth and to preserve farmland permanently. So the conservation easements have had, as a tool, have been very important to this commission, and it's really unclear where the conservation easement value could even be for this Mission Ranch property. It is designated as prime farmland. It is vineyard property. The Vista Lucia property is also designated as prime farmland and is primarily row crops at this time. The Mission Ranch property is in no threat of urban development as far as I can see. But certainly the cost differential is seems to be what's driving this. I think one of the last comments that I gave at that January 8th meeting is that the developer's proposal had not identified a land trust to hold, that is willing to actually hold the conservation easement. The city had invited the Ag Land Trust to that meeting, and at that meeting, the land trust representatives indicated that their organization is unwilling to participate in this particular mitigation proposal due to policy inconsistency, distance from Gonzales, and potential litigation risk. And that's when the land trust identified other available sites very close to the city's edge. So a big part of what's under discussion is the question of proximity. If you refer back to our actual, the relevant language in LAFCO's policy, it talks about the fact that our first priority is that these conservation easements should be in close proximity. And so question has been raised, well, what is close proximity? Is 10 to 12 miles, does that constitute proximity? So as part of our research into that, if you could please move ahead. Thank you, Jonathan. We looked back, your staff, wanted to explore what were the commission's intentions and the commission's expectations in writing and adopting the policy language that talked about conservation easement sites being in close proximity. So we found some very important clues in the public record. One is that as part of a discussion in December 2023, staff laid out 3 options for the commission to discuss and take action on for a future policy update. And the question specifically was, where should mitigation lands, that is conservation easement receiver sites, where should they be located? We laid out at least 3 options that you can see on the screen here, with the first one being in the community where the annexation is proposed. Other vicinities or distances from the proposed annexation is option B. No guidance, which could be option C, or then open to other options and approaches. So following that discussion, the commission, by unanimous vote, chose option A. The specific motion that was made and that was unanimously adopted on December 4th, 2023, indicated that ag mitigation lands are to be located in the same community in which the annexation is proposed, but the mitigation land could be extended to other areas with comparable like-for-like soils within Monterey County if no suitable mitigation lands can be located in the same community after a good faith effort. What followed this meeting was that your staff came back then with a draft or 2 of the actual policy, and that policy was adopted in, I believe, early February of 2024, and it mirrored or summarized this very motion. This yellow highlight here for the adopted unanimous motion was the basis of our policy. And Jonathan, if you could please, or Jeff, please go back to the conservation easement policy paragraph. Thank you. This is the policy is several pages, but the relevant paragraphs are right here, and specifically the second paragraph, to the extent practicable, conservation easement receiver sites should be located in close proximity to the community where the proposed annexation and et cetera. And so we took the language in the motion that said it should be located in the same community. Of course, it can't be in the community because it's not annexed, but that's what we translated into close proximity, meaning as close as possible to a city's edge where the proposed annexation and loss of farmland will be occurring. So this information, if you could please flip forward now, thank you. This information about the Commission's intentions regarding its adopted policy, I believe are really important because it helps to remind all of us about the origins of this new policy language that was intended to provide additional steps, additional certainty for the cities, for developers, for LAFCO staff, for members of the public. And we have the Commission's discussion and very clear motions in the minutes, in the public record, to help us understand what proximity really is all about. So I think going forward, that's going to be important for all of us to keep in mind. If you could please continue on, Jonathan. The second item that we received as just before the Christmas holidays for review from the City of Gonzales staff was this map. It's a proposed four-phased annexation of the Vista Lucia project. The project, as Jonathan had mentioned, is about, I think, 760 roughly acres. And our newly updated ag preservation policy wanted to provide, the Commission's intention was to provide some additional tools, additional mechanisms to make, in particular, ag mitigation more palatable, more affordable, more manageable for developers. Over the years, the size of the annexation proposals that LAFCO has received has really increased. And with that comes very high price tags for ag mitigation. And so the idea of phasing annexations is one that was a creative way that the Commission believed that we could break up the costs for the mitigations for each of these annexation phases. Prior to this, the LAFCO policies and our procedures really did not have a way of breaking up a large annexation. Now, thanks to the Commission's new policy or the updated policy, we can accomplish something like what is proposed here. And I indicated at that January 8th meeting full support for this concept of taking a 700+ acre proposed annexation, splitting it into a maximum of 4 parts as allowed by our policy. And the idea is, the adopted idea, is that the Commission can consider the entire comprehensive annexation proposal, all 760 acres. The Commission, if it desires, will be able to approve all of that in concept, and then it will be, the annexation would actually be recorded in phases. And the timing would be when the city and its development team is able to meet the ag mitigation. So, for instance, for phase 1, that mitigation could be addressed in just a few months, or it could take 3 years. There's room there, and the project, the annexation would stay in a conditional approval mode until the ag mitigation component can be implemented. Once it's implemented, then LAFCO staff can proceed to record phase 1, and then we move on with the city and developer team to phases 2, 3, and 4. So those latter phases could take many, many years. So as part of implementing these new tools that are built into LAFCO's ag preservation policy, LAFCO has requested that the city provide some written information about their proposed timing for this annexation phasing and how they anticipate this would move ahead. And the related part of that is the anticipated timing and legal mechanisms for ag mitigation. So part of the legal mechanisms that need to get squared away is going back to the fact that the developer's ag mitigation proposal as it stands right now does not include a land trust partner who is willing to accept and hold a conservation easement. Ultimately, what will be required, what has been the Commission's practice for at least 25 years, is that a willing and qualified land trust would need to provide, or the city would need to provide as part of the application to LAFCO, at least a letter committing the land trust to being a partner, that is willing to hold the conservation easement, or even sometimes we've received a resolution from the board of directors of a land trust entity. So that's an example of the type of legal mechanisms that we would be looking for phase one in order to process an ag mitigation proposal. And we would want our checklist, our implementation guidelines, request the city to explain to the best of their ability how they see phases 2, 3, and 4 and their timing for when those annexations and phased ag mitigation will be occurring. So that was the also part of the January 8th meeting where we discussed this, and I expressed that this proposal, as we see it here, is consistent with our LAFCO policy that allows up to 4 phases now for an annexation, along with 4 phases for ag mitigation. So that's good news. And then we also requested, and the city staff advised, that they are working on the written narrative that goes along with our related requests there. So that's what we've just talked about. I think I can wrap up now with, we covered all that. I'd like to conclude by outlining what I think will be the next steps ahead. We understand, the outcome of the January 8th meeting is that the city staff and developer team asked for time to review the initial comments that had been provided by LAFCO staff and by the Ag Land Trust. They intended then to come to regroup and come back to continue the discussion so that we can kind of wrap up this issue, resolve it, and the city can move forward to submit its application. We understand from a follow-up conversation this past Friday that the city intends to submit the Vista Lucia application soon, and that the city intends to include the developer's current ag mitigation proposal as part of the application. At that point, our formal process kicks in, with both elements from the Cortesing-Knox-Hertzberg Act and from our ag preservation policy and from other LAFCO policies and procedures. I've outlined here, with the help of our staff, of course, the 3 basic steps that we anticipate. First, as part of, once we receive a formal application submittal, LAFCO staff has 30 days to review and issue a completeness letter. And that letter would list any incomplete application items. The updated ag preservation policy does address completeness status, and it indicates that The executive officer shall determine an application to be complete or incomplete within 30 days of an application being submitted. The executive officer's determination that an application is incomplete with regard to the commission's policy for ag preservation may be appealed to the commission. That appeal process, Chair and members of the commissioners, is new. That's a new step built into the process so that if there's an impasse, that it can be addressed by our commission, and on that point only, relating to ag mitigation. So if after the application, the Vista Lucia application is submitted to the LAFCO office, and if it is deemed incomplete with regard to the commission's ag preservation policy, then the city, as the applicant, may appeal that particular point to the commission. So it is possible that the commission may receive an appeal of that incomplete item determination in coming months. At that point then, after that appeal process, the full application, whether it stays the same or whether it's been modified based on whatever the outcome is of the appeal, would proceed to a commission full hearing. And you're all familiar with that. That's our normal process. But I'm highlighting now this, this new step, our new opportunity that the city would have to basically challenge any determination that the application is incomplete due to consistency with the LAFCO ag preservation policy. So I believe that's our last slide, and I hope I've done an accurate job here in portraying the initial comments that have been provided to the city. I have also indicated to our city staff and the development team our willingness to meet as often as we need to in order to continue to work towards resolving this particular issue. So with that, I will thank the commission and members of the audience here for your attention and consideration today. Again, this is an information-only item. It's an update about what we are seeing right now and what we expect you'll be seeing in coming months. If there are any questions, then our staff and council would be glad to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you for the detailed presentation and all the, it sounds like a lot of meetings and work that's gone on behind the scenes leading to this update. So I'll just start with saying thank you. Let's take this out to, I'm going to follow sort of the summary of recommendations that are in our staff report and open it up to public comments first before we bring it back to the board for questions. So I did see a couple hands raised when that was on my screen. I'm going to ask Jonathan for some help calling for public comment, unless there's anyone in chambers who wants to start with public comment on this item.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
All right. We're going to problem solve in real time here. Thanks, Laura.
Sure. Okay, so I'll go ahead. I'm Laura Davis with Landwatch. We encourage LAFCO to uphold its responsibilities under its current mitigation policy by requiring a complete and adequate mitigation plan for developers. Vista Lucia and now Puente del Monte constitute sizable parcels of prime farmland, 1,260 acres in total, or double the size of what we currently know as Gonzales. It's important in proceeding with developments of these proportions to balance the need for new housing with preservation of the county's rich agricultural land, especially when the housing at issue will not benefit the local community. Taking away one community resource, in this case, high productivity farmland that provides jobs, and replacing it with housing that will benefit out-of-town commuters and investors provides a case study of why LAFCO's mitigation policy is so important to our county. As the policy notes, one of LAFCO's responsibilities is to discourage urban sprawl and preserve open space and prime ag land. Where a development like Vista Lucia will consume over 760 acres of open space, the program requires preservation of an equivalent amount of farmland, and it must be of comparable quality. According to LAFCO's policy, it must be like for like or like for better. That means that the developer must identify a property like or better than Vista Lucia in terms of location, productivity, quality, size, and worth. Additionally, effective ag mitigation should implement the requirements of the 2014 MOU between the county and Gonzales, sections 6.1 and 6.4. This calls for locating ag conservation easements in a way that defines growth boundaries of the city, preventing urban expansion to the north, west, and south of existing urban limits through conservation easements or dedication of land to nonprofit land trusts. We appreciate LAFCO ensuring that when farmland is taken for housing, especially sprawl housing that is not affordable to the vast majority of local working families, an equal amount will receive permanent protection. We encourage LAFCO to use its power to veto any proposed mitigation that does not rise to the standard required under its 2024 policy. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your adjusting our microphones here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the Commission. My name is Maria Orozco. I'm a Gonzales resident and also a council member for the city of Gonzales. I've been on the city council for almost 20 years, and this project has come before us for about 20 years. I totally disagree with the previous comments that this project will not benefit Gonzales residents. I can assure you that we currently have hundreds of folks who are on a list of, on an informational list, who are always inquiring about our housing projects in the city of Gonzales. When I got onto the city council, my children were in high school and in college. They have since graduated, have returned to Gonzales, and want to make Gonzales their home. I currently have a granddaughter who will be graduating from high school and has already indicated that she will be going off to college and wants to come back and reside in Gonzales. So we have many, many families who are in the same situation where their children have gone off to college, have come back, and want to make Gonzales their home, but housing is just not available. I look forward to our city continuing to work with LAFCO staff to make sure that this process and that this project moves forward so that many of our families can have a home in Gonzales that they can call a home and reside in Gonzales along with their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being here in person with us. We're going to now go online, and I'll ask Jonathan for your help calling off names since I don't have the Zoom meeting.
So the City Gonzales Community Development Director, Tavin Kinnison-Brown, your hand has been raised, and I think you're unmuted, or you should be unmuted at this point.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, my hand has been raised for about 45 minutes. Thank you. I think it would be wise to have a real review of a general process. We just received a 1-hour information item with critical decision points being asked or shared with you for direction and giving recommendations without the city really in the room or being invited to speak to this. It feels like like almost no good deed has gone unpunished here. The city has shared information. We've invited people to meetings, and there's been a characterization here that it does not ring true with me. So I'm going to pause a little bit, but had we known that so much of the project components that we've shared willingly in a pre-application would be come back and presented out of the context of the whole project. And I might defer to my colleague consultant, Mr. Brent Sloma, if he's online, if he could speak. But as far as an informational item, there's just so much information that you don't have with us, so much of the effort that has not been presented, so much of the good faith, so much of us going out and securing agricultural lands for mitigation, but yet this was not given to us as an alert today that we're going to be talking about the project components, or that that we too wouldn't have 45 minutes on the mic to share with the commission for you to deliberate. But as we're, it's obvious that the city will need to make an application and have all the paper on the table so we can all point to the same information. So I'm gonna pause at this moment, but that was a very long informational item, review of policy and so many particulars of the project. And I'm hoping some of there's other interests that have been watching as well. So thank you for the time you've given me here. It is the city's full intention to always be fully transparent, to be working with policy and working with the policies. And if we put all the chronological facts together for what we've done, I think our record will be bright and illuminating to you, that we're all operating here in good faith. So thank you. I'm going to close my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us, and thank you for sticking with us until the portion of the meeting for public comment. We do appreciate it. Was it Brent on the line for public comment? I'll pass it back to you, Jonathan, for our next.
Yes, City Consultant Brent Slama, you are unmuted. You should be able to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair, members of LAFCO. Brent Slama, obviously, if I'd known there would be a 45-minute presentation on just this component, I would have been in the room with you as well. However, we have not filed the application yet. I'm working closely with the team on filing that application, and all the information that the executive officer talked about, the phasing, will be included. We're prepared to do that. The concern that we have certainly is that there's a lot more to it in terms of good faith. I was in front of you during the creation of this policy, telling you that in the past, when these agricultural mitigation easements have been done, people own the property. A farmer owns the ranch, they can dedicate 500 acres. There really isn't a cost to that. The last two South County cases, and I was there when Miramonte was approved in Soledad, were developers that don't own ag land. And going out to find ag land is a very difficult thing to do. And it does cost money. And it costs a lot of money based on the number of acres we're talking about. One of the things that I don't want to lose sight of is that the developers worked extremely hard for a long time in finding sites. What I'm concerned about is when you tell someone to go get a site in close proximity and you talk about a policy that includes the whole county, a site that you can actually see the Gonzales golf ball from, the water tower, affectionately called our golf ball, is pretty close. But it seems to me that a like parcel is turning from something that, are we looking for farmland for environmental purposes, or is it becoming political purposes? And in the case of both projects, that's what it seems to be turning into. We feel that we have acted in good faith. The developers acted in good faith. The developers not shared any financial information in terms of the cost of the easement with me or with the city. So where that information comes from, I'll defer to the staff. However, the goal is to build housing and to preserve farmland. I said also a couple years ago when you were crafting the policy, since these developers don't own the land, let them find a way to easily pay an in lieu fee so that should there be more, should be other parcels that are available, that they would be able to pay a fee and be done, and there not be a long drawn out process. And so we come back to that, which is they have been working really hard. We love to talk about the good faith efforts on the developer side, on the city side, more likely in a forum where it's proper to do so. But I thank you for your time. As we mentioned, we've not filed the application yet, but we look forward to doing so. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have anyone else with us online?
Chair Askew, no hands are raised at the moment.
All right, anyone else with us online? If you'd raise your hand, we can call on you. We would appreciate your comments and hearing from you. We'll do one last call for public comment. We don't have anyone else in chambers. We're not seeing any other hands come up online.
There's now a hand raised from Delia Gutierrez. You are unmuted. Can you unmute your microphone? Just one more time. Delia Gutierrez, your hand was raised. You've been asked to unmute your microphone to give your comment.
Delia, this is our last call for public comment. We have your hand raised. If you're able to unmute your microphone, we would love to hear your thoughts. Okay, we're going to have to close public comment though. We do always appreciate written comment for the record though. So please do send any additional thoughts or comment. This is just a discussion item today. So we will receive any additional comment, written comment to the board or the commission for further consideration. And thank you all for joining us. We're going to bring it back to the board for discussion and all questions, thoughts, additional questions. So I see Commissioner Daniels.
So I've definitely exceeded my ability to say I'm new on the Board of Supervisors, but I think I can still ask some questions that you all may have the answer to, using the excuse that I'm new on LAFCO still. We didn't have that many meetings last year. So a couple of questions. In the policy that was provided, the portion of the policy, page 33 of 42, the introduction does start with significant debate exists concerning the authority of a local agency formation commission to adopt policies, rules, regulations, guidelines, or conditions regarding the establishment of agricultural buffers. But in terms of Cortese, Knox, Hertzberg, preventing sprawl, protecting best farmland and open space, and helping with the efficient delivery of services, these things are generally accepted. Is there any debate about that obligation that a LAFCO has? Is there any disagreement about that? This would be for McKenna.
There is no disagreement.
There is no disagreement. Okay. And so when I look, if you could bring up the chart, not the chart, but the slide again that had the image of the parcels, the potential mitigation pieces. It was a map which showed the city of Gonzales and then the three different options that the Ag Land Trust had recommended, and then it had Mission Ranch down at the bottom. Could you bring that slide back up? And then totally separate note while that's happening, in regards to the public comment, was the informational meeting that we're having today, this discussion, was the city noticed and let know that we were going to have this conversation here today?
Yes, Commissioner Daniels. We have a widespread distribution list, and so as part of that, all of our city managers and planning directors do receive information, as well as interested members of the public. In addition, last Friday morning, we provided a courtesy notice of this meeting directly to the Gonzales City Manager and Community Development Director.
Okay, thank you. That's just helpful. So in regards to this, again, being new, on the question of proximity, so I see the city of Gonzales here, and I see the 3 yellow parcels and then the red one below. I'm assuming that we're accomplishing more than one thing when we select these locations. It is ag mitigation, but that also may serve a purpose in terms of preventing urban sprawl. Is that also part of it? Do we consider that part of our obligation in determining where potential ag mitigation may exist?
Short answer would be yes. That would be consistent with the legislative purposes of LAFCO.
So if I were looking then at that map again, I'm not as familiar with Vista Lucia. Where does it fall on this map, since it's not identified in this picture, I don't think?
The project is on the northeast side, adjacent to the city boundaries on the very far northeast.
Okay, and then there was another easement, I think it was called Rionda. Where would that be?
That is roughly north of the kind of yellowish orange parcel in the south.
Jonathan, could you use the arrow and point to both the Vista
So the Vista
Lucia's
Lucia,
site, please?
Oh, great. Okay, so 31 of the agenda packet has, if I look at that page, little harder for me to understand, but it looks like it demonstrates, so Vista Lucia is up at the top, and then the Puente del Monte proposals, like maybe even right where that 4 miles word is?
Yes.
That, okay, somewhere in there. Okay, so it would ultimately also serve a secondary purpose in terms of preventing sprawl. Is that accurate? Again, I'm apologizing if I'm taking us on any bit of a detour. You've all been engaged in this for a lot longer than me, but I'm just trying to understand the goal here.
Yes, conservation easements do serve several purposes, public purposes.
Okay. And then in regards to what I heard here today, it would be helpful for me to understand, is going through the process that was adopted and approved by this commission voluntary or required? Is there a path that the city could take that's their own ag mitigation plan, or must they comply with the commission's policy? And for whomever that is online, I am strictly trying to understand, as a newer commissioner, what it is we're trying to accomplish here today. So thank you very much.
Reed, would you like to answer that? Yeah. Please.
Point of order. I think we need to talk about what we're trying to accomplish today.
Okay,
And so that's my
in
point of order.
response, thank you. The point of order, we're answering questions of commissioners, and the commissioner has questions, and we have staff answering the question. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to understand the requirement that the city has or has not, right? It sounds like there was a farm mitigation policy, or had a different name, that the city put forward, and it sounds like there is a disagreement about what steps need to be taken. If I heard the public comments that were made by both the developer and the city council member who came in, it sounded like they said they would be following the LAFCO steps. It sounded like each of them did ultimately say that. So I'm just trying to understand what has occurred.
So the short answer is yes, they have to follow LAFCO's policy. That was probably recently discussed, and you may have been at those meetings, with respect to the EIR, not referring to LAFCO policy, despite staff having been on that beating on that drum for a long enough time. So they do have to legally comply with the LAFCO policy. To answer your question.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. And the last question I had was, it was brought up in public comment, an MOU with the county. Can you just briefly tell me what that MOU is and where it may or may not apply in this instance?
Oh, yes, through the chair, I'd be glad to respond to that. As part of, or prior to adopting a sphere of influence for each of our Salinas Valley cities, the practice has been, under the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, to encourage consultation between the city and the County of Monterey as to direction of growth, and other matters. And so most of our cities in the Salinas Valley have such agreements, memorandums of understanding or memorandums of agreement with the County of Monterey about big picture things, part of big picture land use things. And so as part of that, for the city of Gonzales, the city and the county agreed, for instance, that the long-term direction of growth for the city of Gonzales should be roughly to the east, away from the very best farmland, and that below Gloria Road should be a pretty hard, definite urban edge with farmland below that. And also another hard edge would be farmland to be preserved on the west side of the city.
Okay.
So the west side and the south side have the very best farmland. So that agreement and others like it look at those factors. And so it's a cooperative agreement between the city and the County of Monterey.
Great. I really appreciate everyone allowing for me to ask those background questions. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Commissioner Gorley next. Yep.
Sure. And in the Gonzales general plan, we have a golden line and growth direction that I was part of back in those years. But there's also something that you're not seeing in the map that we probably should identify, is where the existing easements that have been in place for several years on the north side of Gonzales. So actually, these lots that were selected, there's probably two of them, if you could put that map back up, that really wouldn't help with urban sprawl, because there's properties already buffering right next to the city sphere of influence lines now.
So on this map, commissioners, it does show conservation easements. It's really hard to see with all these hash marks. You've really got to study things. But yes, the city of Gonzales has many conservation easements around it. Most of these have been done as part of the private sector. That is, they have not been attached to any annexation application or other role. LAFCO has not played a role in most of them. Most of these conservation easements are voluntary, that have been put into place over the last 25 or more years.
So, yeah, so if you look on the north side of Gonzales, along Alta, I'm not sure if you know where that's at, but on the northern portion there along the freeway, that was put in, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago. So the one parcel that they were wanting is not going to do anything for urban sprawl, because you can't currently cross that boundary. And I don't believe the Rianda is on this, is it? The Rianda easement, conservation easement on Gloria Grade Road? Is that?
It's not shown.
Yeah, so even the parcel, if you put up the other map, that doesn't do anything for the city of Gonzales either, because you can't cross one easement to get to the other easement. So that's all for naught. Of course, we want all of these. Yeah, so the 032 mile property has to cross the Rianda easement, which currently is in place. So neither one of those two easements, in my own personal view, the 029 mile on the north end or the 032, you would have to cross existing easements to be able to develop either one of those two parcels. The 1.4, if you want to stay with LAFCO policy, Cortese Knox, and develop concurrently, you know, you'd be hopscotching around to be able to develop that property. So it's just for context, I want to let you know that is other easements in place that are not shown on this map, which would have been helpful. That you can't get to these other parcels anyway to develop a city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other comments?
I just have a
Questions?
lot of history here. That's
Yeah.
my point. So
That's a good history to have. Thank you.
that's it. That's all I have.
Yeah, just
Commissioner
Chair.
Oglesby.
Thank you so much, Chair. I would just ask that, can we have an updated maps that we can use for our needs? Just like Commissioner Gorley said, is some of this information is not on these maps. And so can we work with him to outline some of this stuff on maps that we can use that actually tells the better story? I thought it was impactful because, for example, we trust what he says, but we may not understand it, and it's better if we see it officially in the document so we can understand it better. So I think.
I have a comment, just,
Sorry, hold on. And that's a request for, as this comes back to us.
Yes, whenever it comes back, no rush.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, and we'll go to Commissioner Lindley.
being new to the board also, been on here, but we haven't had any of these decisions. There are some things that, why do we annex farmland and then try to save farmland? Seems very ridiculous in my mind. But just food for thought. I understand that there's borders, and this is community that I grew up in. So there's spots where certain lines were drawn on the north side of the Violini Ranch, was what Matt Gorley was talking about. The family wanted to preserve their ranch, was why they put that into that. On the south side, the Rienda Ranch, and I think part of the Puente del Monte is owned by the Rienda family. So it makes sense that they would make the border on the outside of my property so it doesn't affect where I want to develop, in theory. But I love the fact that we want to preserve farmland, but at the same time, why do we annex it? If we're really talking about urban sprawl, don't annex it. But I understand people need somewhere to live. We're all in that boat. So it becomes difficult. And I just wanted to put that out there that you're kind of doing two things that I kind of understand what we're doing, but if we put a value on the farm ground, or do we get to decide what gets preserved, is kind of more of the question.
Thank you. Commissioner Leffel.
Two things. I also was going to ask for, I would like to see a copy of all the presentation today because that wasn't in our package. So if that could get sent out to us, just so we can kind of review it. And then the large map, and the other day I was in the office, so I got to look at it and understand it a little bit, but the large map of all of the annexations that are currently, the annexations, the sphere of influence, what's the Williamson Act, so that big green cross-hatched is, and when we have this, if you can bring that actually to the chambers where people can look at it and see it really well, I think that would help. Yeah, I think that's what I've got right now. I don't think that we haven't seen anything further on Soledad's annexation. Would that be correct?
It is correct that we have not received a Right now, the condition requires, the project was approved with a condition that required that an ag mitigation plan be put together and carried out. But that plan has not been put together, and we understand the very current status is that the property is up for sale. We also understand that a farm north of the city of Soledad that had been held as an option as a potential mitigation receiver site, that option expired on December 31st of 2025. And so it's up in the air. The commission has approved at least 2, if not 3, one-year extensions of approval. The city manager has come and requested those. So your next opportunity to consider another extension of time will be in this fall. And if that is not granted, then the approval, which dates back to maybe 2022, would expire.
Okay, I just wanted to, I didn't see that we had any presentations that I could remember on any mitigation, so thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Donahue, thoughts, questions?
I have thoughts.
Would you like to share any thoughts? Not today? Okay. Well, this is a good time to share some thoughts. Okay. Commissioner Kong, alternate Commissioner Kong. Yeah, fair. Got it.
Through the chair, before you end it, I want to.
Well, hold on, I'm going to share some of my own thoughts and
No, well, I wanted you
feedback
to
before we
go
do a second
last.
round. Hold on.
No, that's fine, that's fine.
Yeah, and then we can share some additional thoughts. Thank you, though. So in terms of a copy of the PowerPoint, I think that's always helpful for me to have in front of me. And it sounds like it's something that our friends in Gonzales would appreciate getting a copy of as well. So if we could, if it's possible to add that to the agenda so it's online with the packet, so it's all together, that would be great. And then you had mentioned some communications that had gone back and forth with the city with the requests for information. If we could maybe get a copy of that as well, just that we know what has been communicated to the city in terms of requests. Maybe if that comes back to us, I'm sure that will come back as part of the application, but just so we can see what communication LAFCO has requested to be clear, so that when the proposal comes, we're clear about what we've requested from the city. I think for me, some of the things that are really clear as we move forward, I want to make sure that LAFCO is working in partnership with our cities, and that there's open lines of communication, so that as we're trying to figure out, is there a easement that's existing? Is there property that makes sense? Is there opportunity to find I assume that because everyone worked with us to develop our policy that we have, that we're all aware of what the policy says, but I don't want to make that assumption. So, as we're working on these annexations, I think we all want for the application that shows up, I can speak for myself, the application that arrives to us to be one that can be approved because it's in compliance and complete with our policy that we've approved. I think where I get concerned is that if for whatever reason there's not clear communication, or there's pieces of the story or the puzzle that are missing, and as a result of that miscommunication or lack of communication, we don't have information that's being shared adequately by the time it shows up to us, and we end up with a application that's incomplete, or hasn't followed our policy. We spent a year trying to draft this policy and put it together. And if our first, if in our initial tests of the policy, we are setting the policy aside and saying, actually, we're not going to be using this policy, we're not going to be following this policy, there's no point in having an ag mitigation policy, right? We're telling everyone in the county, like, never mind, we didn't actually mean that, and we don't intend to hold anyone to that. And I think that concerns me, like like from sitting here right now already, like I worry about that from the get-go. And so I'm hopeful that just this conversation means that the city and our staff can say, hey, like, let's sit down, let's relook at like what's required here. And I think it's clearly outlined. It's, what is required of a conservation easement. I think we were really clear as a LAFCO, like, what do we expect? What does good faith mean? It's step 1, 2, 3, 4. And if those steps aren't followed, then that's not followed. If there's a reason why we have concerns about a parcel that's 10 miles away and closer to another city that's actually looking for their own mitigation land, and we believe that there's someone who's offering other property, like, can we have that conversation and share that information? Can we have those conversations? I think I heard our director say, I want to talk about that, and I'm here to help. So I'm hoping that we can open those lines of communication up so that when an application shows up, it's one that we can all feel good about and be prepared to support. So I just want to be really clear about what my ask of all partners are. A couple other questions I had for Kate. You mentioned that in the conservation easement that those are for LAFCO, that we expect legally those are held in a land trust. And I heard one of our other commissioners state that there's conservation easements that are not held in land trusts in the area, or conservation easements that are
They're not on the plan.
not on the plan. So are those held outside of a land trust?
No, not at all. I didn't say that.
Oh,
No,
okay.
basically, they weren't on the map.
Not on the
plan.
map.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess I still have some questions, just broadly speaking, about where we have conservation easements, and if there's conservation easements that are held out. If we have multiple land trusts that are holding different, so how the different easements are held, and if we have a if our local land trust is holding some easements, and then some easements are held outside of land trust, and if LAFCO is expecting that legally any conservation easement is held in a land trust, being able to point back to our policy about where it states that explicitly, and that if we have land that's held in conservation easement but isn't associated with the local land trust, that we can be explicit about sort of what those differentiations are. And so I'm going to go back and get some answers to those questions myself. So if we want to do one more round of questions or comments, I'm happy to do that, and we'll go to Commissioner Oglesby first, since you had a question.
Thank you, Chair. A request, and then I have a little short comment. It was said earlier, I forget who said it, but someone referred to legislative intent. And so I think if we're going to go back to the minutes and we're going to pull out certain items, I would like for that whole meeting to be attached to anything that comes back as it relates to this item. Just a link, so if any commissioner wants to go back to what we talked about, how we got there during that day, because I know what my thoughts were for the 10 months we went through that, updating of the policy. And so, and then my next thing is I'm trying to figure out what is this today, right? What is going on, notwithstanding the questions that from new members or anything like that, but to lay this thing out and talk about certain issues and to try to, in my opinion, try to shape what's going on, when the rest of us, I wasn't prepared to have that type of conversation. And so if we're talking about, applications coming back and they're not following the policy, well, the application should come back and we should see if it follows the policy or not. But the way it was laid out is like this, we know for certain that it would be, an application will come in and it won't fit our policy. And so my thing is, I don't know if that policy needs to change again, right? Or I would ask and I'll close with this, is I'll ask our general counsel is, who makes that determination, the final determination about an application fits our policy or not? Is it the commission, or is it the city, or is it the executive director, or who is the final arbiter of what we approve and what we don't approve?
Thank you, Commissioner Oglesby. It's the commission, right? The commission makes the final decisions. That's on applications that are before you, and also if a application is deemed incomplete and there's a desire to contest that decision also, right? The final decision will rest with the commission, all of which, of course, is subject to the backdrop of those decisions can be challenged. So final decisions rest with this commission, subject to the rule of law and how those commissions make decisions.
Any other final comments, questions over here? Gorley?
Yes. We all know that Soledad's gone, right? So we're not going to see any houses in Soledad for 5 or 10 years. It's going to take forever. Costs are continuing to go up. It's not the only reason that I'm speaking on this Gonzalez plan, but, you know, is it going to take us another year or two to work this out? And then there's so much that has to be built in the city before you can see the houses. There's overpass work, infrastructure work, all that has to go before somebody can move in. Adequate timeline, are we looking at 7 to 10 years, 15 more years before we see one more house on that valley floor? And I think that's not our job is to get people some housing, and I really believe that. Not just because I build houses, but it is something that we need in the valley. This is not going to provide any work for me personally, but we need housing. My workers, my guys, they all live in Gonzales and Soledad. There's no freaking housing. My kids, there's no housing for my kids. Everybody's struggling. It's a shame, and I think we need to do better. Besides transportation, is another one of my big ones for Monterey County, and I don't think we're doing an adequate job there. Good faith, it was talked about good faith, and 2 of the city leaders, our city planner and the consultant, both spoke that there was good faith, and had they had been here, they could have shared what the good faith efforts were from the city of Gonzales to comply with our LAFCO ag mitigation policies. They weren't here. So it's a shame. It's a shame, and I don't know how that happened. The other thing is, I would love to see what that existing Gonzales general plan looks like, because that's all also a law document that we should see. What are the city leaders? What are their growth areas? None of us are from the city that are sitting up here on this dais. And what has the city leaders done for the last 30 years? And what are their plans? It's their city. And you know, we're up here making decisions for them. So I'd like to know what that general plan, what their map looks like currently. That's all I have.
Any other final thoughts, comments?
Chair,
Okay.
I could just say, to be clear, I really was just trying to understand what our objective is here and really what hat we're wearing at LAFCO. And so if that hat is good, orderly development, I think there's space for both the production of houses and following through with the policies that have been drafted by this entity. And I'm just trying to understand those policies so I can be a good LAFCO commissioner. Thank you.
All right, thank you all. And there's no direction or action required for today. I think this was just an opportunity sort of to review our policy, get updated on this anticipated project that's likely coming to us. I want to thank those members who joined in, whether via Zoom or via in person. And we have a few more items to work our way through. But as I said, I do feel hope that we can use this as an opportunity to say that there is we all know the desire to see a successful proposal come forward. And it sounds to me like there's a few pieces that we need to continue dialogue on. And I'm hoping that those who need to engage in that dialogue can do so that when it comes to our director and this board commission, we can find the ways to say we've got a complete application that can quickly move its way along as needed. So those are my thoughts. But with that, we can deem this item received and move our way on to the next item, which is I will say it is item number 6, executive officers' communications.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the commission, page 41 of the agenda packet provides an update on some of our recent activities and correspondence, and I have no additional comments. Be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Is there any public comment on item number 6, our executive officers' communication?
Juraski, no hands are raised on Zoom.
Right, any commissioner questions, comments for our executive officer? Seeing none, we'll consider that received and move on to, let's see here. I think is that, well, any commissioner comments? We'll just ask one more time, because it's on the agenda. I don't want to skip the agenda. All right, with no commissioner comments, we can adjourn to our next meeting, which is scheduled for Monday, February 23rd, 2026 at 3 p.m. right here in the Monterey County Government Center. Have a great afternoon, and thanks for spending part of it with us. And Happy New Year.